Welcome to Hardly, where books turn into 3 stories, refreshing your knowledge in minutes. Today we listen to John Mill's End of the World, Civilization and Its Fate, in which we probe into the unconscious drive towards self-destruction in modern civilization and its catastrophic impact on the planet's future. John Mill's, Psi.D., Ph.D., ABPP, is a philosopher, psychoanalyst, and clinical psychologist. Don't go away. Hardly the editor will be right back with the story. Let me take you through 3 stories that have deeply resonated with me while exploring the unconscious drive towards self-destruction in our modern civilization. The first story revolves around a small coastal town in Bangladesh. A few decades ago, this town thrived on agriculture, with lush fields extending as far as the eye could see. However, as the years passed, the tides began to rise. Farmers noticed that their once fertile lands were slowly being swallowed by saltwater. The town's leaders turned a blind eye, continuing their reliance on outdated farming methods, even as the soil became increasingly saline. By the time they realized the gravity of the situation, it was too late. The fields were barren, and the town, once a hub of productivity, was abandoned by its people. The tragic irony is that the rising sea levels, fueled by global warming, were a direct result of the very practices that had once sustained the town. The town's demise is a stark reminder of how our refusal to adapt, driven by an unconscious belief that things will always remain the same, can lead to our downfall. The second story takes us to a bustling metropolis in the United States. This city, known for its towering skyscrapers and relentless energy, is also a significant contributor to carbon emissions. In the heart of the city, a community of environmentalists tried to raise awareness about the dangers of unchecked urban expansion. They organized rallies, lobbied for green policies, and even succeeded in getting a few eco-friendly initiatives off the ground. However, their efforts were dwarfed by the city's relentless push for growth. Skyscrapers continued to rise, cars clogged the streets, and the air grew thicker with smog. The community watched in despair as their beloved city, consumed by its own ambition, became a symbol of environmental degradation. This story highlights the tension between progress and preservation, and how our unconscious desire for more can blind us to the consequences of our actions. The third story is set in a remote village in the Amazon rainforest. The villagers here lived in harmony with nature, relying on the forest for their food, medicine, and shelter. However, as the global demand for soybeans and cattle increased, so did the pressure on the rainforest. Logging companies, backed by powerful interests, began encroaching on the villagers' land. The villagers resisted, but their efforts were in vain. Within a few years, large swaths of the forest were cleared, leaving behind a desolate landscape. The villagers were forced to leave their ancestral homes, their way of life destroyed. This story is a powerful example of how global economic forces, driven by the unconscious belief in endless growth, can lead to the destruction of entire ecosystems and cultures. These stories, while varied in their settings and circumstances, share a common thread: the unconscious drive towards self-destruction. In each case, the people involved were aware of the dangers they faced, but were either unable or unwilling to change their ways. This destructive drive, deeply embedded in the collective psyche, manifests in various forms, from the refusal to adapt to changing environmental conditions to the relentless pursuit of economic growth at the expense of the planet. As Mills astutely observes, we continuously poison our seas, land, and air, plunder our natural resources with callous disregard for future consequences, and disrupt Earth's regulatory mechanisms, hence ensuring the slow but steady deracination of our planet. This quote underscores the insidious nature of our self-destructive tendencies. We are not merely passive observers of our demise. We are active participants, often driven by an unconscious belief that our actions have no long-term consequences. The root of this drive lies in our collective unconscious, a realm where deep-seated fears, desires, and instincts reside. According to psychoanalytic theory, the unconscious mind is a powerful force that shapes our behaviors and decisions, often without our awareness. In the context of modern civilization, this manifests as a compulsion to exploit and consume, regardless of the long-term consequences. This compulsion is not just an individual trait, it is a societal one, reinforced by cultural norms and economic systems that prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability. The stories I've shared are just a few examples of how this unconscious drive plays out in the real world. They serve as cautionary tales reminding us of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of being mindful of our actions. The catastrophic impact of this drive is evident in the environmental crises we face today: rising sea levels, deforestation, pollution, and climate change. These are not isolated incidents but interconnected outcomes of a civilization driven by an unconscious desire to consume and dominate. As the editor of Hardly, by understanding these deep-seated tendencies, we can begin to challenge them and imagine a future where we act with greater consciousness, responsibility, and foresight. A future where we do not just survive, but thrive. In reflecting on the unconscious drive towards self-destruction in our modern civilization, it becomes clear how deeply ingrained this impulse is in the way we live and interact with our environment. One story that stands out is that of a small island nation in the Pacific. This nation has faced the relentless threat of rising sea levels, a direct consequence of global warming. Despite the evident danger, the government, driven by a need to maintain economic stability, continued to invest in tourism infrastructure, building resorts and attractions along the coastline. As the water levels rose, these investments were washed away, leaving the island in a worse state than before. The leaders had gambled on a future that was never sustainable, ignoring the reality of their environment in favor of short-term gains. This story, like the others, highlights the peril of ignoring the signs of our own destruction. The drive to consume, to build, to grow without regard for the consequences is not just a personal failing but a collective one. It is a testament to how our unconscious mind can lead us down a path of destruction if we are not vigilant. As we close this discussion, it's essential to recognize that by bringing these unconscious drives to light, we gain the power to change our course. Understanding the root causes of our actions allows us to choose a different path, one that prioritizes sustainability, awareness, and the well-being of future generations.